So cold weather is upon us, and one of the things that happened to me when the weather starts to get cold is I spend a lot more time indoors, and then also my skin kind of starts to lose its coloring. With that though, I don't want to look like a crazy person with like a ton of really harsh bronzer on. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the bronzers that I think are suited best for pale/light skin tones. So I want to start off with cream bronzers. And the reason I like cream bronzers in the winter is because my skin gets super dry. So sometimes I just like to do a full face of cream makeup. So I'm going to show you the ones that I have really been enjoying. The first one is actually a classic. This is the Chanel, what do they call it now? Le Beige's Chanel. It used to be like Soleil Tan de Chanel. They changed the name of it. But this is in the shade 390 Soleil Tan Bronze. They do have multiple shades of this now. I mean, obviously in this video, we're just talking about the pale shades, but I do want to mention that if I talk about a technique I use or anything like that and your skin happens to be darker, then maybe you could just get the darker shade. So anyway, they changed a couple of years ago, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of talk on the change a little bit because it's annoying. This used to be more of a sort of gel texture, and the texture has definitely changed now, and it's a little less sheer than it used to be, which it's still pretty sheer, but the formula is different. It's a little less sheer, a little bit more thick, and then also I noticed I had my last one for like an embarrassingly long amount of time, like 6 years, and it never really seemed to like dry out or anything. And this one I haven't had very long, and it already is kind of acting like it's wanting to dry out. So I did want to point that out. What I like about it is the fact that there's multiple ways to use it, and I actually do like the coloring that's slightly like an orangey yellow. I know a lot of people don't, but since I am a pale to light olive, everything picks up pink on me, even when it's not like really that pink. So having something that's a little bit like orange or yellow based looks more natural on me because it's not picking up a ton of pink in my skin. So anyway, you can put this on as kind of a primer under your foundation. You can just kind of dust it all over to give yourself a little bit of extra glow, or you can put it in the areas where the sun hits your face and kind of buff it in that way, and then put your foundation on over it. The reason I sometimes like putting it on under my foundation is if I have like any breakouts or anything like that, I don't have to worry about buffing this in and removing any coverage that I put on my breakouts. So typically I'll buff this in, put my foundation on, and then I'll go in and I'll cover any breakouts that I may have, and this still looks incredibly natural on the skin. And you can put it over a foundation or tinted moisturizer. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. I find it to be more versatile in that way, and because of the formula, it kind of does like dry down. So when you put the foundation on, it's not going to move it. So some of these other ones, you can't really do that with them, because if you put them on under and then you go in and you try to put a foundation on top, it's going to move the product. So the next one I want to talk about is from Merit. I did recently just do an entire video talking about Merit, and I'll have that linked up here if you want to see a full face of Merit products. This isn't the lightest shade. This is the second to lightest shade, but the reason I like this for more pale to light skin tones is the fact that it is so sheer. So it doesn't look like you've bronzed your skin with it, because the way it kind of goes over the skin, it shears out and it looks incredibly natural. You can kind of see it more in the video where I'm talking about it, but this is sort of a moisturizing kind of gel formula, and it's just sheer. By the way, I have the shade Clay. All right, the next one is from Makeup by Mario, and I don't know if this is technically even a bronzer, but I'm putting it in the category. This is the Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer. So this is kind of like a cream sort of bronzer formula, but it's very dewy and again, very sheer. So you can kind of see how sheer that is. And kind of the same deal with the Merit. It just adds coloring without actually putting coverage on your face. I find that the more opaque sorts of cream bronzers that put coverage on your skin look less natural, and they're harder to deal with, especially for light skin. I think maybe if you're a little bit deeper, they might look more natural on you, but they're very noticeable when you are fair to light. So I've seen a ton of people on TikTok use similar products to this, where they are doing like a full face of like cream makeup. And most of those people doing those looks are MLMs, and the formula is completely different. So don't confuse this with that. So this is from Salt New York. Salt New York is, I believe Kiki was a makeup artist or is a makeup artist, and then she came up with this whole sort of system. These are the blushes and like contours and bronzers I have. I really like the formulas because they're moisturizing and sheer. So this right here, I'm swatching right here, which she has tons of shades. This is the Sculpt and Bronze, and this is in the shade Light. So I'll give a swatch there. And then this one is in the shade Light Medium. And there is the Light Medium. And then this one right here is in Taupe, which is kind of their more sculpting sort of shade, if that's something you want. So here they all are. So the reason I really like the bronzers, like the light and the light medium, again, is because they go a little bit more warm, they're sheer, and also her foundations, just as a side note, most of them lean olive, and I really appreciate that. So they're not super noticeable on the skin, and they look really fresh and healthy. So those are like the closest thing that I've been able to find that are a close match to my skin. I mean, her blushes and everything are really good. She has some really nice colors that are a little bit nuanced. And her line is pretty affordable. Like, you buy the pans individually, which I believe are around, I don't know, $14, $15 each. But she also usually has deals on her website. Like, if you buy so many, you get a discount. And then you get this. I think I bought it separately, but you do get something like this to put your stuff in and keep it all together. And anyway, that's all for the cream bronzers. And now I have like some more shimmery ones to talk about. So I know that like a lot of people don't like a shimmery bronzer, and I think it gives a lot of life to the skin, again, without adding a ton of coverage. And I think shimmery ones can sometimes look more natural. So the first one's on the more affordable side, and this is from Revlon, and this is their Skin Lights. And I'll just give a little swatch. Again, it's a nice thin formula, not a ton of coverage, and there it is. So then when I kind of just dust this all over, it just adds a little bit of life to the skin without being like too much. And that is in the shade Sunlit Glow. And then I have this from Kosas, which I have the shade Light here, and it is also shimmery. And it kind of like the same deal. It just blends really nicely. Those are almost like identical. It just blends really nicely on the skin and has a nice golden kind of glow. So I want to mention this because it's technically a blush, but it can also be kind of a contour. And this is the Burberry Earthy Blush in Light Glow Natural Blush. So here it is. And the reason I like this is because it is so light and so versatile. You can use it multiple different ways, just kind of depending on your makeup look. And while it does lean a little bit pink, I don't find it to lean so pink that it looks crazy on my skin. And it is just a really sort of light, I guess sort of blushy, bronzer, contoury situation. So I did want to mention that. I have another affordable one that I want to mention. This is the Ulta Beauty Faux Glow. A couple weeks ago, I went to link it and I saw it was on sale, and I'm hoping that Ulta was just having a sale and that they are not discontinuing this, because the way this blends on the skin, so on the skin, it gets like a skin-like texture, so it doesn't mattify your makeup at all, and it tends to start just like looking, I mean, it says glowy. It reminds me a little bit of like an ambient lighting powder, but like just to give a little bit of a tan glow. So here it is rubbed in to my hand, and you can see it's not super dark. I do have a darker shade. This is light to medium, and so I must have medium in here. Where is it at? So in the summer, I started using the medium to deep. I wouldn't necessarily call this deep. But let me rub it in over here on this part of my hand. Here it is. It's just very sort of like sheer and skin-like, and it does give just enough sort of like glow, just to kind of add life. That's all I'm looking for with any of these. It's just to put a little bit of life back in the face after like we put on our super pale foundations that match our necks. These are literally just to put a little bit back. So I have some from Fenty. So I do have a Fenty cream bronzer, and I'm not going to talk about that one because it kind of has a little bit of coverage in it, and I also have like a shade that's a little bit deeper. So maybe if I had tried the lighter shade, maybe, but I can't really speak to that. So anyway, this is the bronzer in Into Sun, and I really like it for the same reason. If this one does not lean as yellow, so if I'm suggesting ones and you're like, that's too yellow, that's too orange for me, this would be a good option. There it is, because it kind of leans a little bit pink, but not too pink for me to be able to wear it. So it's a little bit cooler than some of the others. All right, so then on the more expensive side here, I have this from Tom Ford, and this is the shade 02 Terra. So I'm guessing maybe there is a lighter shade, but I find that this one is plenty light. And again, this is similar to the Fenty in the way that it is not super warm. So this does not lean orange. It actually does lean a little bit rosy. And I'm sure if you have this and you're swatching it at home, you're like, mine's not rosy at all. Everything pulls pink on me. So there it is. But I really like this one because if I'm doing a look that maybe is a little bit on the cooler side, and then I go in with my normal light bronzers that lean yellow to orange, it looks a little bit off on my face, and this really helps to kind of tie those looks together. I have this from Laura Mercier. I'm not sure if they still make it, but this is the Bronze 01 Matte Radiance Baked Powder. And this one leans very yellow, very orange. And I like it. So I'm gonna put it, and you'll see, I'm gonna swatch it next to the Tom Ford so you can just kind of get a feeling. So I coated it up pretty good. So I normally don't wear it that dark, but you can kind of see how in comparison the Tom Ford looks very rosy next to the Laura Mercier, which looks pretty orange. But again, a nice light dusting of orange really does add life to the skin when you're super pale. Now, I do want to point out, since I am a pale olive, myself and yellow skin tones, again, kind of benefit from these sort of yellowy, orangey bronzers because they don't stand out on our skin. If you have pink undertones and you put these orangey things on, I think a lot of people, when they're complaining about a bronzer being too orange, more than likely they have a pink undertone, and that's why it stands out on their skin so much. So I do kind of want to point that out, that specifically most of these bronzers that I'm liking that are a little bit orange, a little bit yellow, are gonna look best on people who are colored more like myself. All right, so then the last one that again kind of leans a bit orange is from Chanel. And this is the Le Beiges Maxi Powder, and this is in Sunshine Light. And this is a huge pan of product, but again, it shears out and it's not opaque. It's a very beautiful transparent formula. And I'll just kind of put it here, and you can kind of see just this area here is a little bit warmed up on my hand, and it looks nice and it looks healthy. So this is also a great one. So now I want to go into my sort of bronzer duos. So sometimes you'll get a bronzer and it comes in a duo where you get either a light and a dark shade of bronzer, or you will get like a contour and a bronzer. So I just kind of want to show what I have and what I like about each one. This first one is from Juvia's Place. It's very affordable. I like that you get a ton of product, and I also like that this bronzer that is kind of like the summer shade is a little bit warmer than this one. You can kind of see it leans a little bit more rosy. But what I like about them is in the winter, I will wear this one. In the summer, I will wear this one. So if you're on a budget and you're looking for something that you can wear year round, this would be a really great product to get. So I'll kind of swatch both of them side by side. And here they are. So you can see more orange, a little bit more cool, all in the same palette. So then the Victoria Beckham, I just did a video on this. That's what I have on my face today. I did a full face of Victoria Beckham products. In that, I used this. And the way I like to use this, you're probably thinking that's way too light as a bronzer, in which it actually warms up the face quite nicely. I'll swatch it over here. You can kind of see it does add some warmth without being like super opaque and being like super dark. But what I actually like to do is I'll kind of go in and contour a little bit with this. And again, on me, this does lean a bit more cool. On somebody else though, it may lean warm. You can kind of see it's between kind of these two as far as in like cool to warm. But it is slightly sort of rosy. So what I like to do is I'll have my blush on first, typically. Well, it doesn't matter, but I like to put it kind of like in a contour area and move it up towards my blush. And then I will put my blush on, and then after I put the blush on, I go in with this lighter shade and I'm able to kind of blend it all together. So I'll blend either the contour area like down into the rest of my face, over the forehead, all of that stuff, just to kind of marry it together, blend it, make it look more cohesive, so you don't just have like a contour strip right there. And then the last one I want to talk about is from Wayne Goss. So this one's really interesting because it has essentially a full-on gray shade, and then it has sort of this warm, sort of golden bronzer. And then there is the bronzer swatch. So it's shimmery, and then the gray shade is transparent and supposed to kind of function almost like a shadow on the skin. But you can see a lot of people say that you should wear a gray as your contour because shadows are gray. And yes, shadows are gray, but also it's not just straight up gray. Typically the shadow is grayed over whatever color is under it. It's not just like plain gray. So I find that this is so gray it almost goes purple on me. I can maybe just put a little bit on, and then I have to go over it with this to kind of warm it back up to get it close to my skin. So I'll kind of show you. I'm just going to go ahead now and put the warmer shade over top. And then there it is. So it's a little bit more wearable. But like, you can get whatever color you want and you can contour with it. It does not have to be gray. And for people with skin like mine, gray typically looks off. It's not a good color mix. So I did kind of want to point that out a little bit. But what I do like about this one is the fact that this is in here to warm this up. But unfortunately, this part is too cool for me. But if you have a really cool skin tone, this is probably going to look fine on you. It just looks really ashy and strange on my skin tone. So I feel like I kind of ended on a negative note there, but I did also want to point out the fact that like a lot of people are very condescending when it comes to like contouring and makeup, in which I think that makeup has no rules. You just do whatever makes you feel good. But I see so many videos of people like,
you're contouring with bronzer, it's supposed to be gray.
Well, if there's a bronzer that maybe leans a little bit more cool, it could definitely be a bronzer in somebody else's skin, but if it leans more cool, it might look a little bit better on my skin as a contour because of my skin tone. It's all relative. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and jump off of that soapbox. But if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.